Let's be honest, figuring out who'll join the ranks of Smash Brothers next is not easy. I should know, I've been at this for a while. There's always an air of uncertainty over what'll happen next, and the anxiety stemming from it often leads to fans grasping at anything that might paint a clearer picture of what to expect next. In practice, it leads to people overreacting to whoever just got revealed and expecting the rest of the reveals to match it. One notable example recently is what happened after Sephiroth showed up. For a while, all everyone and their cousin could talk about was more iconic third-party villains and how they had to be coming too. Don't get me wrong, analyzing what we know is fine. Architect knows I've made a name of myself doing it, but looking only at what literally just happened never pans out. Though this mad dash of everyone trying to figure out what'll happen next does usually lead to the community looking at more characters than they were before, which can be a silver lining for fans of those characters now that they're finally being given the time of day. This is Challenger Approaching, where we take a character who isn't playable in Smash yet and go deep into detail on what they could be like if they got in for real. Our challenger this time is someone whose own support base skyrocketed in reaction to a recent reveal. While I think his situation is more complicated than a lot of people may believe, I also think he's interesting enough that I want to give him a detailed look nonetheless. Dr. Eggman. Dr. Ivo Robotnik, aka Dr. Eggman, is... oh, come on, if you follow video games, you know who this guy is. This iconic antagonist is a genius at heart and builder of all things robotic and mechanical. But due to an ego that dwarfs even his intellect, he puts those talents toward constructing robot armies and doomsday weapons in attempt after attempt to take over the world. While he's a brilliant engineer, he's not much of a programmer, skipping the develop complex AI for his creations part by instead capturing innocent animals and having them serve as his robots' brains and power sources instead, and occasionally kidnapping more sapient animals and forcibly mechanizing and brainwashing them to be his loyal soldiers. Yeesh. A certain blue hedgehog took objection to this for obvious reasons, and Sonic has been at work thwarting the Mad Doctor's nefarious schemes ever since. A classic evil mastermind, Eggman's tendency to talk a big game when he has the upper hand, yet fly off the handle in exaggerated fashion when his plans inevitably fall apart, due both to Sonic and his own hubris, has made him an entertaining and iconic bad guy you can't help but love to hate. Though as far as Smash goes, Eggman's always been more in the background. He wasn't outright dismissed in roster speculation, but traditionally he's been an afterthought, lost in a crowd of so many other characters. Even other Sonic characters often got attention before he did. But that changed faster than the speed of sound when a certain other iconic villain crashed the party this past December. And since the Smash community loves responding to new reveals by immediately course-correcting their predictions in knee-jerk fashion, it's made Eggman a pretty big deal in speculation now. Suddenly, he had front-runner levels of attention in gravitas, as many fans saw him as the one missing piece of the puzzle Ultimate needed to have all the most famous video game bad guys, even if Dr. Wily was just an assist trophy. It reached a point where he was one of only a few characters who trended on Twitter in the days leading up to the February Nintendo Direct. But the community was off the mark again, as Fighter Number 9 ended up being someone they weren't laser-focused on. Which goes to show that Eggman's actual chances are much less clear-cut than they might have seemed 3 months ago. Sephiroth did open the door for third-party franchises to double up on characters who aren't just Echo Fighters, but by no means does one reveal give away the rest of the game. And as we know now, it doesn't mean Eggman himself is a shoo-in. But there has been an upswing of interest in the character now, which isn't a bad thing. There's a lot of potential at the fingertips of this genius megalomaniac, and now more people than ever have realized it. Alright, let's get to work. What would Dr. Eggman be like in Smash? To hammer in his basic appearance, we need to make a big decision. Will he be piloting something? I've seen some concepts put him on foot, but honestly that's boring and doesn't utilize his character very well. I've seen many that put him in his classic Eggmobile, but honestly that makes him lean a little too close to Bowser Jr. We want something unique here. So what I do is take the Egg Walker from Sonic Adventure 2, the first time Eggman was playable in a mainline game, and design a new, upgraded version to use in Smash. A more compact design would keep the Walker's hurt box from being bigger than Ridley, and more modular parts would let it change modes for different situations, like having its legs bend down and sprout wheels during its run animation. More of a drive than a run, but you get the idea. An array of hatches and attachments on the Walker's chassis can deploy all kinds of weapons based on Eggman's many boss fights. fights. And hey, it's completely in character for him to build something new to use in this new environment. He calls it the Egg Walker S. And he's already come up with at least 5 different comebacks for when Sonic inevitably makes fun of the name. Having Eggman sitting in a mech means he'd look very different moving around and attacking compared to nearly everyone else. Animation should match this, with a plodding, mechanical-looking walk, a jump and double jump that activate thrusters on the walker's feet to get it off the ground, and a total lack of any acrobatic flips or spins. This thing needs to feel like the big piece of machinery that it is. Eggman himself keeps his hands firmly on the controls, taking them off only to press buttons or flip switches to activate different attacks, or flail his arms around wildly if he gets hit particularly hard. Alternate color options should also fit the walker's artificial nature, since the palette swaps are basically just giving it a new paint job. Some heavy-duty or industrial-looking color schemes would work here, grungier-looking than Bowser Jr. and the Koopalings, though not full-on real as brown or anything. Could also work in some references to characters like iconic Badniks, or Metal Sonic, or Emerald, or members of the E-Series. Eggman's actual outfit could also change colors to complement his walker's colors. Now let's see what Eggman's stats and other attributes could be like. For his fighting style, we want to tap into something that fits his character and stands out as well as possible. Ideally, this means something different compared to all the other big bodies. What I've come up with is something that encourages playing like an evil mastermind. With multiple ways to take over parts of the stage and dictate the pace of the match, Eggman lays dominion over the field of play just like he wishes he could over the entire world. He excels at limiting where opponents can run and jump to safely, as well as forcing them into positions that benefit him. He also has enough survivability that he can afford a few slip-ups and still hang on to potentially prevail. This playstyle not only fits him, it makes him a perfect foil to how his archnemesis fights. Where Sonic is all about freedom and using movement to gain momentum, Eggman is all about control, stifling enemy movement, and shutting down their momentum. As far as his stats go, not too surprised are ya? Even with the Egg Walker S being more compact, Eggman himself sitting in it would still make for one of the biggest fighters in the game. The sheer weight of the Walker's body armor would also make for one of the heaviest fighters in the game, slotting in as the 3rd heaviest we've seen so far. Not your typical setup for a super heavy, huh? It's one reason why he'd be able to survive for so long compared to most of the cast, though he'd also get comboed really easily at low percents, so that's a downside. Eggman's mobility stats are a mixed bag, but better than you expected maybe? While his walk isn't that great and his initial dash is mediocre, once the walker's wheels come out, he actually has above average run speed. His burst movement might not be great, but he can cover long distances to get into position fairly well. His airspeed is below average, but not bad, so he also doesn't mind taking to the air if necessary, though his decently floaty fall speed means doing so is a commitment. And while he has a couple moves that take advantage of that, his moveset as a whole still encourages staying on terra firma. The floatiness does help with what is otherwise a pretty average recovery, though it can be safer to use than it sounds here. You'll see. One way Eggman is like a typical heavy is what happens when he manages to hit someone. The Walker's array of armaments packs a punch, and a handful of them are very reliable finishers. That said, most of his moveset is on the laggy side, so he's not well suited for direct combat. He can't keep up in close quarters against more aggressive fighters, which is why he wants to use his tools to stifle opponents' abilities to play hit and run on them. Now let's go over Eggman's moveset. We've talked up how unique the Egg Walker S can be, so let's see just what this baby can do. First, a jab combo that, am I reading this right, sticks a boxing glove out of the walker's front? It's based on Eggman's melee attack in Sonic Adventure 2. Our version is a 3-hit combo where the glove juts out of the machine twice quickly and then finishes with a more forceful punch. It's kinda slow and unwieldy to use and honestly not something you want to rely on. More of a fallback option if you need to beat out an opposing attack. Eggman's forward tilt also comes from SA2, this time based on the default Vulcan cannon, except instead of a long-distance projectile, our version's a point-blank shotgun blast. I didn't want him to be a full-on zoner, so I adapted the source material instead of copying it directly. Sorta like Me Gunner's forward tilt and function, it's a disjointed spacing tool and a pretty good one at that. Even has the ability to angle it up or down. The Walker ain't that great at covering above itself quickly, so Eggman does it himself for his up tilt and just swings his arm overhead. It's actually decently fast, so you can fall back on it in a pinch, but its damage ain't that great, its hitboxes don't reach low enough to catch opponents standing next to you, and its knockback and end lag conspire to stop any idea of starting combos with it. Alright, now this gets interesting. Eggman's down tilt deploys a spiked spinning disc from the walker's base that hovers above the ground for a moment before going back in. Inspired by the Egg Viper fight from the first Sonic adventure, it's a low-reaching multi-hit move that can stuff out predictable attacks and potentially set up tech chases, though its startup is kinda slow. Eggman's dash attack also comes from Sonic Adventure. Repurposed from the Egg Hornet, a pair of spiked prongs come out from the walker's sides and it lurches forward to tackle anyone immediately ahead. It's a hard-hitting move with a big hitbox that catches landings and punishes whiffed attacks in commanding fashion. The startup, again, is pretty slow, but the extra jolt of speed the walker gains during the move can help it close some gaps. If you thought those sounded strong, wait till you see Eggman's smash attacks. His forward smash is one you probably saw coming from a mile away if you're into classic Sonic. The giant hammer from his aquatic ruin fight in Sonic 2. Very slow yet very powerful if it connects. It's best suited for reads just like a certain other hammer-based forward smash. You could also see it taken after DDDs by having a sour spot on both sides of the hammer when it hits the ground. Eggman's up smash deploys twin drills from both sides of the walker that drills straight up. A multi-hit move based on his Mystic Cave fight in Sonic 2, it excels at pressuring platforms and poking through shields with its two sets of hitboxes. That said, they're both on the narrow side, which might make them easier to fall out of if you don't get a clean hit. But there is a launcher hitbox at the start as the drills come out that pulls people into the rest of the hits. We're back to Sonic Adventure in the very first Egg Walker design for Eggman's down smash. A pair of electric orbs on the feet of the Egg Walker S activate as he makes the machine short hop in place, then slam back down. Able to go over low attacks and punish them hard, its main hit is on the walker's feet, but when they hit the ground, they create a secondary shockwave hitbox that lingers for a few additional frames for extra reach. Sorta like the shockwave on Robin's down smash, but shorter lasting. Alright, now how about Eggman's aerials? Starting with a neutral air I just had to include. Deploying a smaller version of the checkerboard wrecking ball from his very first boss fight, Eggman swings it in a circle around the walker. While it's notably slow to come out, it's strong when it hits, enough to KO people outright eventually. The wrecking ball starts diagonally below and behind Eggman and spins around counterclockwise, which is pretty weird for this style of neutral air. Next, Eggman's forward air uses a modified version of the Egg Dragoon's Lance. You didn't think I'd let the older games have all the fun, did you? The walker deploys a smaller version of the lance and stabs forward 3 times. The first hit angled slightly up, the second angled slightly down, and the third straight ahead. A multi-hit spacing tool with range that rivals Ridley's forward air, it's Eggman's only aerial that auto-cancels if he short-hops it, making it a crucial spacing tool. It also has a landing hitbox, giving it extra protection but also eliminating any drag-down setups. For his back air, Eggman spins the walker around and brings out a smaller, but still pretty big, version of the Egg Breaker's Spike Ball. Another slow but strong aerial, it has a big hitbox that makes it very good at netting knockouts, as long as it hits. I know some people might not like some moves coming from less popular games, but you know what they say. Eggman's up air does jump back to the classic games though. This time we're using the flamethrower from his Angel Island fight in Sonic 3, done by having the walker's side cannon rotate to face up and spew a stream of fire into the air. Eggman himself ducks and covers during it. It's a multi-hit aerial with surprisingly good vertical reach that pressures platforms and keeps juggles going. Doesn't have much range to either side, but the fire does expand a little as it rises, so there's that. And for his down air, you know the Starlight boss fight in Sonic 1 where Eggman drops spike mines onto you? Let's have him do that by opening a hatch on the walker's underside and dropping a slightly bigger version of the same explosive. A projectile down air is highly unusual, and it helps cover his landings and makes him harder to keep airborne than you'd expect from a big body. It's got a lot of end lag though, so you'd have to be smart about using it. The mine itself would explode with moderate range on contact with pretty much anything. Ground, platform, item, fighter, you name it. On to the grab game, and we're not done with the callbacks. Eggman's grab uses the egg catcher from his Casino Night Machine in Sonic 2. The device's prongs come out the front of the walker and run a current through them, snaring anyone in range and holding them in place. The catcher extends out a little during the grab animations to give them actual range, more during the dash and pivot grabs. The pummel just has Eggman press a button that sends an extra jolt through the catcher's current, delivering a quick burst of damage. But things get fun with his throws. His forward throw deploys the bumpers from his Palm Tree Panic fight in Sonic CD to send his victim flying forward at a low angle. It's even a pretty strong kill throw at the ledge, rewarding Eggman for actively cornering his opponents. His back throw brings out one of the big arms from his final fight in Sonic 3, grabbing the enemy and flinging them away. This one deals a lot of damage and also kills eventually, though later than the forward throw. Then his up throw just has the catcher rotate up and shove the opponent into the air, which combos into a few other moves at low percents. And his down throw, get this, pulls from his secret base fight and Sonic Advance by having the walker spring up and pound down for a whopping 14%. Let's finish this with a few taunts, such as one where Eggman does an obligatory evil laugh, always fun, one where he has the walker jump in celebration like when he clears a stage in Sonic Adventure 2, and one where the walker suddenly sparks and malfunctions, making Eggman grumble and pound the chassis with his fist in frustration, which somehow fixes it. Now this gets interesting. What special moves does Dr. Eggman have up his sleeves? We've included most of Eggman's basic moves from Sonic Adventure 2, except one. Why? Because I was saving it. The Egg Walker's most reliable and highest scoring attack in that game lets you lock on to multiple enemies with a targeting laser and then fire a barrage of energy shots that home in on them. How do we get that working in Smash? Well, pressing and holding B would have the same targeting ray come out of the walker's side cannon, going about 3/4 of a normal stage length. Any opponent the laser touches gets marked with a targeting reticle that sticks onto them as long as you keep the laser active. Let go, and the cannon fires an energy blast at each enemy it targeted that homes in on wherever their position was when you took your finger off the button. The shots come out at about a 45-degree angle before the homing kicks in, so they're more likely to go over enemy projectiles and collide with them. They're pretty fast once released, and when they reach their target, or touch an object or a hard surface, they create an area of effect explosion about the size of a full-power charge beam, dealing significant damage and shield pressure. You can even hold up while the targeting laser is out to aim it upward and target opponents in mid-air or standing on platforms. Lockon Laser gives Eggman a means to harass opponents from a distance and force them to deal with him personally. As a zoning tool, it's not that great, since it's quite a commitment to use, and anyone who gets targeted can still get out of the way before the actual projectile reaches them. But that's what Eggman wants. You see, this move's actual main use is forcing enemies to move somewhere else. Flush them out of a position that favors them into one that favors you. But if it does happen to hit, it's strong enough to be a legitimate threat and eventually a kill option. Just don't pull it out against opponents actively rushing you down. And while you can angle the laser up, you can't angle it down. So no easy edge guards against low recoveries. Whew, that was complicated. How about something more typical for Eggman's side special? Typical enough that classic fans probably saw it coming. Eggman's first boss fight in Sonic 2 has him try to run Sonic down in a vehicle tipped with a massive drill. We can't not use it here. On use, Eggman pulls a lever that morphs the walker into a form resembling the aforementioned machine and deploys a spinning drill at its front, and after a short delay, Eggman charges straight ahead. But this move is more than just a gap closer. Pressing any button while it's going will detach the drill and fire it forward, dealing multiple hits that end in an explosion. While on the go, the walker moves at a speed slightly below Bowser Jr.'s clown cart dash and comes to a stop quickly if you launch the drill. And if you use this move in the air, the walker slowly leans downward as you travel, with the drill following whatever angle it was aimed at when you let it fly. The Drillmobile is a means of covering distance that shines most when catching enemies trying to land. If your target is further away than expected, you can send the drill out for just a little more coverage. Though be warned, this move has a lot of end lag if you do release the drill, so sometimes it's better not to. You can also use this as a recovery move if you're higher up off stage, though be careful with it since you can't bail out early with a jump or dodge. All these callbacks to old boss fights, yet we haven't used the most classic part of Eggman's arsenal yet. Let's do something about that, with a little extra added on. The Eggmobile is the Doctor's primary means of transport in the classic games, so of course we want to use it here, with an extra from the Metropolis fight in Sonic 2, where he uses an array of spinning pods to protect himself. On use, Eggman pulls a different lever that folds up the walker's legs to make it resemble the classic Eggmobile, and it hangs in midair and charges a set of thrusters. Once it's charged, the machine flies forward a moderate distance in whatever direction you press. But if you hold B instead of just pressing it, the walker charges for more time as it generates the same egg-shaped pods from the Metropolis fight as protection. The longer you charge, the more appear. With a moderately strong hit on the walker and multiple weaker outer hitboxes on the pods, this move is very difficult to directly contest when it's fully charged. Flying Egg may only go an average distance recovery-wise, but the more breathing room Eggman has when he uses it, the safer he can make it. This is another thing that helps him live to higher percents than nearly anyone else. That said, charging this move doesn't actually make it go any further, though he's still weak to getting edge-guarded hard enough before it comes out that it can't get him to the ledge. It also doesn't protect him fully against the bigger disjoints in the game, like Shulk's or Sephiroth's swords, nor does it save him from projectiles with trample properties like Robo Beam or Thoron. Gotta be careful around those. So what's left for Eggman's down special? We've pulled from his boss fights and his playable appearance, so now, how about his minions? The low-ranking egg pawns from the modern games take many forms for many purposes. In Smash, that purpose is Sentry. On use, Eggman pulls out a device with a big red button on it and dramatically presses the button, activating a teleporter located who knows where that beams in an egg pawn with a lance and shield immediately in front of him. Eggman imparts some brief orders, and the pawn courageously stays put and guards its current location. If any opponent gets close enough, it rears back and swings its lance at him. While the attack isn't very strong, the knockback can confirm into a few moves of your own, including kill moves. The pawn has its own total HP and will fall apart if it takes enough damage, including damage from your attacks, or it'll shut down on its own after enough time has passed. Hey, they're mass-produced, they're not exactly high quality. Egg pawns are Eggman's most direct form of stage control, letting him immediately lock down a section of the stage and make opponents second guess going there for a while. While it sounds very useful, and it is, you can only have one pawn out at a time and can't call in another until your current one is destroyed. And you can't camp by summoning a pawn and hiding behind it because they're actually smaller than the walker is. And now for our grand finale. Eggman's final smash has him pull out all the stops and bring out... Okay, you might have seen this coming too. But the Death Egg robot is too classic not to use, showing up in all kinds of places after its original role as the final boss of Sonic 2. Channeling the energy of a Smash Ball, Eggman declares, "Now for my true power!" Flies the walker straight up and off screen and comes down in the background controlling the mighty Death Egg robot instead. The gigantic machine hovers in place in the center of play, and a targeting reticle appears on screen for you to freely aim at the other fighters. Once a few seconds have passed, Eggman shouts, "Get a load of this!" and fires one of the robot's massive spike-tipped arms straight toward the stage, spinning rapidly and dealing a flurry of hits to any poor sap caught in its clutches before unleashing a final blow that sends them flying. But wait, once the arm is out, a second reticle appears, letting you aim again and fire the robot's other arm to catch anyone who thought they were safe. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. This is what Dr. Eggman could be like in Smash. The man with the master plan puts his greatest invention yet to work as he personally enters the fray. His genius intellect and knack for crafting evil plans, and a little strong-arming if necessary, pave the way for victory. Just one step on the path to global domination, if that stupid blue hedgehog would stop getting in the way. Eggman's playstyle fits him like a glove and proves very effective at disrupting opponents' game plans, forcing them to fight on his terms. With an array of hard-hitting attacks, his high damage per hit, and multiple effective finishing moves become increasingly scary the more stage control he exerts. And his ability to survive to very high percents without breaking a sweat means he has more opportunities than nearly anyone else to bounce back from his plans going off course. However, Eggman's poor frame data and lack of quick burst options means he's not that great in straight fights where he can't make opponents play around his stage control. His various setups only work if he has enough time and breathing room to prep and position them how he wants. And playing as him requires constantly thinking ahead to plan your next move, something that doesn't work so well if you're worn out or an opponent is messing with your head. Wasn't too late with this one, was I? All the Eggman buzz hit a peak after Sephiroth's reveal, and I don't know how much is still left after fighter number 9 wasn't a major villain. I'd been meaning to try designing a concept for this guy, and all the talk gave me inspiration. That and I've been dissatisfied with most other concepts I've seen for him, especially the ones that stick him in the Eggmobile and don't do enough to make him feel different from Bowser Jr. I wanted to make something that felt more unique. There were a couple things I went back and forth on, like a gimmick based on the jet engine upgrade from Sonic Adventure 2 where he'd be able to make the walker hover in midair for short durations and mix his landings up even further. It might be too overpowered to include. Honestly, I'm kinda skeptical on Eggman's chances for the rest of DLC. I think he's more of a next Smash game thing, if anything. But who knows, I've been wrong before. I just think calling him a shoo-in feels like an overreaction to Sephiroth, and those have rarely panned out in Smash before. How about you though? What are your thoughts on this whole situation? Do you think all this reactive speculating is missing the point? Or do you think the way it gives attention to characters who got brushed off beforehand makes it worth it? Or something in between? Special thanks for this episode goes to these people here. Like the new concept art? Thanks as well to my patrons for their continued support. And if you've enjoyed this video, please do the cliche thing and like and subscribe to appease the mighty algorithms. So, until next time, I'll keep the ideas coming. The more the merrier.